man, I don't usually come on here that much. I don't do lives like that too much. But at a moment like this, some things that need to be addressed as far as like with the Black Lives Matter and these celebrities that's coming out and putting their faces out as the front line for the black people. And my take on that is like a lot of you celebrities are just using it. A lot of celebrities are just using it as a profitable ladder for them to escalate and get themselves up there to a certain standpoint. But to me, it's bigger than that. At any given time, you got law enforcement using black people as a target practice. That's kind of crazy. Then you had the young man there in Toledo. Well, the young man there, Mr. Wright, he was gunned down because the simple fact the lady didn't know the difference between a Glock and a taser. Then you had the young man there in Chicago, Toledo, 13 years old, gunned down because the man said he seen a gun in his hand, but the whole time the gun was down on the ground, and the 13-year-old had his hands up in the air. It was no reason for him to use that kind of force. And then you got this young lady there in Ohio. Now this is a moment right here to where I feel like that was kind of justified because she had that knife in her hand and she was about to get ready to come down on old girl with that knife. And if she'd have came down on her, she'd have did some real damage with that knife. She could have killed her. A knife can be used as a deadly weapon if you did not know that. So with that being said, yes, at some point, not everything is a Black Lives Matter moment. Some things you just leave it as it is and just let the investigation just take its course. You don't just jump out there and just say, fuck it. We're going to make this into a racial moment. Because that's not what it is. It's not racially based. With that young lady there in Ohio, that was kind of like, she put herself in that kind of circumstance. If she'd have dropped that knife, she'd have still been alive. But by her keeping that knife in her hand, yeah, she was going to die. Because her intent was to do some serious damage. So that was justified. But Toledo, young Toledo there in Ohio, no, that wasn't justified. That gun was down on the ground. He was disarmed. There was no reason for that officer to use deadly force at that point. If you really looked at that video as I did, I seen the gun down on the ground. And I seen Toledo, his hands was up like this when he told him to put his hands up. And when his hands was up, next thing you know, that officer pulled that trigger. Without a second moment of thinking, he just pulled the trigger. That gun was already on the ground. In fact, it was on the other side of the fence if you really looked at that camera, if you really looked at the video footage. With Mr. Wright there, the thing is with that, these officers have so claiming they say they have poor training. They don't go through the proper courses of learning the difference between a Glock and a taser. But we all know that a taser is yellow and a Glock is black. Come on now. There's no way that you couldn't tell that was a Glock, that was a Glock you had in your hand. Something is seriously wrong with that. So, with everybody out here trying to make this Black Lives Matter moment into a political stance, come on now. We got to get out of that phase. Because they're not going to take us serious when we're doing that. They're going to take us for a joke. Every time you jump out there and say, Black Lives Matter. Come on now. You got to get out of that. You got to get out of that mindset. That's a Democratic organization. They make money through the Democrats. A liberal-based organization. That's how they profit. So, I'm just saying, you just got to come up out of that mindset and thinking that Black Lives Matter is all about making a movement and trying to make things better for the black people. No, it is not. It's all about what's profitable to them. And that's what they're using this whole racial tension between black people and whites and law enforcement and all of this crazy stuff. That's what they're basically using it towards. They're using it towards making a profit. You had the young lady that was one of the CEOs or one of the ladies that was a founder or so claimed to be one of the founders. She brought like what she had a $4 million. She bought a $4 million house, and they're trying to figure out where she got that money from to get that $4 million house. Where you think she got that money from? Where do you think she got that money from? All the donations that people are putting into that organization, you know, to go towards fighting racial injustice towards black people. She's taken off the top. That's where that 4 million came from. So on that note, I'm just saying, don't think that organization worked for you. It's all about what's profitable to them.